Okay, Jeremy. We're going to talk today about the upgrade to the network, the midterm upgrade. Mm-hmm. So, in your own words, why do we need the upgrade at this point?
Okay, when we put together the business case back in 2012 now, we always envisaged a midterm upgrade. It's a balance when building networks not to sort of overinvest and put in sort of capacity that you're not using, and you want to hit that sort of sweet spot of investing in the right time. So based on traffic growth that we'd been seeing prior to 2012, we predicted that in 2016 we'd need to add more capacity into the network. So that's essentially why.
Okay. What are the drivers behind the upgrade? What is the primary reason? Is there growth in the kind of bandwidth requirements, for example?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, ever since Janet came into being in the early 80s, traffic has been broadly following Moore's law, doubling every 18 months. It's actually slowed down a little bit. It's doubling every 2.5 years at the moment, the traffic. But the latest set of growth drivers appear to be around move to the cloud for many institutions, whether that's email, business applications, teaching applications, or even research applications. A lot of institutions are obviously changing the way they work. Data analytics playing a big part now in supporting the student experience and so on. Lots of capturing of lectures and those being consumed by students sort of in their own time, going back to the lectures. And that sort of big focus on student experience now is quite important. Students have got multiple devices, big consumers of cloud applications, big users of cloud storage. All of that drives bandwidth from the campus network out onto the wide area network.
In terms of research, is there any big hits on the network in terms of research and how that has changed even in the last number of years?
Yeah, research has become sort of very data intensive. Data is king now, where research is concerned, and that's across all the disciplines. We engage very closely with the radio astronomers, the physicists, and in fact one of the big growth areas we're seeing is in the sort of bioinformatics area, with the availability of ever more powerful DNA sequences, which have the capability of generating vast amounts of data. And of course, that's not just sort of a national problem. Research is international. So we work very closely with colleagues in Europe on the big research networks there, and the challenges of shifting data, see, nationally and internationally as well.
Okay. What does the upgrade involve? Now, you talked about the internationalisation of it. I can imagine that parts of the network are growing more than others, i.e. the links to didnt and all those other kind of links. Will that look like a massive explosion? Will that be where the investment will be going primarily in the first instance, and then looking at other parts of the network? How does that work?
Yeah, and I guess the upgrade, you can break it down into sort of three components. There's the swap out of our core routers. We have a very good sort of workhorse in place now that we've used for many years, but as the capacity grows, we can't fit enough sort of line cards that drive the capacity in the current router base, so we're needing now to install a new set of routers. So that's one thing. The other area is increasing the capacity on the inner core of Janet6. So if you can picture a sort of a ladder structure going up and down the country with various spurs off, we need to increase the capacity there. And then thirdly, there's the capacity out to the regional network entry points as well. And all of this, of course, has to be done with great care because it's an operational network. We don't ever interrupt service to the customer. Yeah. With regards to your question, particular hotspots, it is true to say that the network is very sort of traffic-centric around London, because that's where all the major peer points are. So that's the highest capacity area. And then as traffic sort of filters out onto the network, the links become relatively smaller. So that will be the first area to be upgraded.
Okay. Yeah. How often do these upgrades take place?
I think it's fair to say we're sort of constantly, evolving the network, but every so often, and in the past it's been typically about 5 years we've refreshed the Janet backbone. Mm-hmm. With Janet6, we built that with a bit more sort of longevity in mind. So the fibre infrastructure underpinning the network, we have arrangements in place for that to last 10 years and potentially up to 15 years. Mm-hmm. The underlying optical equipment that lights that fibre has the potential to last for 7 to 10 years. We've had the current routing infrastructure in place now for 6-7 years, so we're doing that technology refresh on the routing infrastructure. So typically something major happens every 5 to 6 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
What would be the risks, or what would happen if we didn't do the upgrade? And have you any experience in the past moving from different networks versions? Have we any experience where that has caused a major problem for our members or customers?
Yeah. So we built the network to allow us to carry traffic on any one link if a nearby sort of link circuit fails. Mm-hmm. So on a sort of route failure, all of that traffic would get diverted onto the resilient routes. So clearly you need almost double the amount of headroom in place on any one link. Now, if we didn't upgrade in the short term, you're eating into that headroom. So in the event of a link failure, you'd get increasingly congestion on the failover links. Yeah. And over time, as capacity grows, that would get increasingly worse. And then eventually, if you didn't upgrade, you'd start causing congestion in non-failover sort of modes. So the user would get a much sort of poorer experience. You can delay the effects of that by introducing certain traffic engineering sort of capability, but that only masks the problem. Now, we saw this back in the late 90s when we were in the version of the network called sort of Super Janet 2 and moving from Super Janet 2 to Super Janet 3. There was at that time very little funding sort of available, so all we were able to do was do a minimal upgrade, and there we were starting to see the sort of problems that I described. Yeah.
That's fine. So just to kind of finish off, Jeremy, what is on the horizon that you think people might be interested on in terms of the network and how that might respond in the future?
Yep. Over the past few years, we've recently insourced the running of the regional network infrastructure. So Janet is constructed as a UK national backbone that connects to 17 regional networks. Previously, those regional networks had been sort of operated under contract from Jisc and Janet by university consortia. We've insourced the operation of all of that, and at this stage now we're reviewing the overall architecture of the network from the perspective of improving the user experience, but also driving down cost of building and operating the network where we can. So that'll be a large programme of work that we'll be undertaking over the next few years.
Okay. Thanks very much, Joe.
Okay, thank you.